I never imagined that the decision to take a seemingly scenic shortcut would plunge me into a nightmare in the middle of nowhere. It was a road less traveled, winding through dense woods that seemed to swallow any remnants of civilization. My fuel gauge flirted with empty, and the sun was making its slow descent, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape. The first indication that something was amiss manifested in the form of an old, dilapidated sign. Faded letters barely clung to the wooden board spelling out "Welcome to Ravenscroft." It wasn't a name I recognized, and my GPS indicated I had strayed far from the planet Raude. A sense of isolation settled over me as I drove further into the heart of this unfamiliar town. The road twisted and turned, revealing houses with boarded-up windows and yards consumed by overgrown vegetation. As I navigated through the desolation, my unease grew with every passing mile. No signs of life, no sounds, just an eerie silence that hung in the air like a heavy fog. My car's engine sputtered, a cruel reminder of my dwindling fuel. Panic set in as the realization hit. I was stranded in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by the skeletal remains of a forgotten town. Desperation led me to knock on the door of the nearest house, a decaying structure that seemed frozen in time. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior with furniture draped in dusty sheets. A middle-aged man, hollow-eyed and gaunt, appeared in the doorway. His voice, a hoarse whisper, welcomed me, but there was a strange detachment in his eyes that sent shivers down my spine. With a reluctant hospitality, he offered me shelter for the night. Grateful for the refuge, I followed him through a labyrinth of dimly lit hallways. The air inside was thick with an unsettling stillness, broken only by the distant howls of an unseen creature. The man led me to a room with a musty bed and a single flickering lamp. As I lay in bed, the night outside grew colder, and the unsettling quiet morphed into a symphony of strange noises. Whispers echoed through the walls, carrying conversations I couldn't decipher. Shadows danced across the room, taking on shapes that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Unable to shake off the feeling of being watched, I ventured into the hallway, guided by flickering lights. The man who had welcomed me stood in the center of a dimly lit room, surrounded by others with vacant stares. Their mouths moved in silent conversation, and the air buzzed with an otherworldly energy. In that surreal moment, I realized I had stumbled upon something beyond my comprehension. A town frozen in time, its inhabitants caught in a spectral loop, replaying fragments of their past. The man who welcomed me was no longer a living being, but a lingering echo of Ravenscroft's haunted history. Fear clawed at my chest as I attempted to retreat to the safety of my room, but the corridor seemed to stretch endlessly. Whispers grew into guttural moans, and the flickering lights cast grotesque shadows on the walls. The air thickened with an oppressive force that seemed to press against my very soul. As I reached my room, the door slammed shut behind me, sealing me in a chamber of horrors. Shadows writhed on the walls, forming grotesque shapes that seemed to claw at the fabric of reality. Whispers transformed into anguished wails, a cacophony of despair that echoed through the haunted corridors. Horror stretched into an eternity as I huddled in the darkness, my mind unraveling with every haunting sound. The spectral inhabitants of Ravenscroft seemed to converge on my room, their moans and whispers reaching a crescendo that threatened to shatter my sanity. Morning arrived like a reluctant savior, the first rays of light dispelling the malevolent forces that had gripped the town. The door, once a barrier to the supernatural, swung open, releasing me from the clutches of Ravenscroft's haunted past. I stumbled out into the dilapidated town, my mind still haunted by the echoes of that accursed night. As I retraced my steps, the once silent houses seemed to groan with the weight of forgotten memories. I returned to my car, its tank now mysteriously full, as if the town itself had granted me the mercy of escape. Driving away, I glanced back at Ravenscroft in the rearview mirror. It stood as a testament to the horrors that lurk in the middle of nowhere, a place where time and the supernatural converge in a twisted dance. The memory of that night would forever linger, a chilling reminder that some roads, once traveled, lead not to a destination, but to the very edge of reality's fraying fabric. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself driving down an unfamiliar road, surrounded by an endless expanse of desolate landscapes. My GPS insisted this was a shortcut, a scenic route to my destination. Yet, the oppressive stillness outside my car windows told a different story. The road stretched on endlessly, flanked by barren fields and twisted trees that seemed to contort in unnatural shapes. The sky, bereft of stars, cast an unsettling darkness over the desolation. A nagging feeling crept into my mind, whispering that this was a journey into the unknown, into the heart of nowhere. The last sign of civilization disappeared in my rearview mirror, leaving me alone with the haunting hum of tires on an empty road. An eerie chill settled in the air, and I couldn't shake the feeling of isolation that seemed to grow with each passing mile. That's when I saw it. An old weathered sign barely holding onto its wooden frame. The letters, faded and peeling, welcomed me to a place called Hollow Creek. A town I hadn't seen on any map, a place that appeared to exist only in the forgotten corners of the world. Curiosity gripped me, and against my better judgment, I decided to venture into Hollow Creek. The road led me deeper, winding through a thick curtain of trees that swallowed the dwindling daylight. The shadows danced in the periphery, whispering secrets to the indifferent night. The town emerged like a specter from the darkness. Ramshackle houses with sagging roofs and windows boarded up as if to keep the outside world at bay. The streets were empty, and an unsettling silence hung in the air, broken only by the distant howl of a lonely wind. A gas station appeared like a mirage on the edge of town. The flickering neon sign, its letters missing in places, spelled out, Evelyn's Fuel and Supply. The worn-out pump stood silent, and the dim light inside the station revealed a rusted bell above the entrance. A hesitant ring echoed through the empty space as I pushed open the creaking door. The air inside was thick with the scent of stale gasoline and abandonment. The shelves, once stocked with snacks and necessities, now stood bare, covered in a thin layer of dust. Behind the counter, a faded calendar marked the passage of time, frozen at a date long gone. My calls for assistance echoed unanswered through the hollow chambers of the gas station. A creeping unease settled over me as I realized that, in Hollow Creek, time seemed to hold its breath. Determined to find answers, I continued through the desolate streets. The houses loomed like silent sentinels, guarding the town's forgotten secrets. It was then that I heard a distant sound, a low, mournful moan that seemed to emanate from the heart of Hollow Creek. Driven by an inexplicable compulsion, I followed the haunting melody until it led me to an old, dilapidated church. Its steeple reached for the heavens, but the windows, shattered and blackened, revealed nothing but darkness within. Pushing open the creaking doors, I stepped into the church. The air inside was heavy, pregnant with a silent sorrow that clung to the pews like a shroud. A lone figure stood at the altar, their back turned to me. The haunting melody, now clearer, escaped their lips in mournful whispers. As I approached, the figure slowly turned, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to reflect the emptiness of Hollow Creek itself. Their face, etched with a grief that transcended the boundaries of the living, spoke of a tragic tale locked in the silent chambers of the town's forgotten history. The figure extended a spectral hand, and the haunting melody intensified. Images flashed before my eyes, a town once full of life, now condemned to an eternity of desolation. The figure, a guardian of the town's sorrowful secrets, seemed to plead for release from the spectral chains that bound it to Hollow Creek. Terrified, yet compelled, I felt the weight of the town's history pressing on my shoulders. The haunting melody, a requiem for the forgotten, enveloped me as I stood in the Church of the Lost Souls. The figure's plea echoed in my mind, and I knew that I had unwittingly become a witness to the middle of nowhere horror that had claimed Hollow Creek. As dawn broke, I stumbled out of the church, leaving the desolate town behind. The memories of Hollow Creek clung to me like a ghostly residue. The road stretched ahead, winding through the barren landscapes, leading me away from the heart of nowhere. The haunting melody lingered in my thoughts, a mournful reminder that some places, lost in the folds of forgotten time, hold stories that the living may never fully comprehend. And as I drove away from Hollow Creek, I couldn't shake the feeling that the town's sorrowful secrets would forever haunt the recesses of my memory. I set out on a solo road trip to clear my mind, seeking solace in the open road. My GPS suggested a shortcut through a desolate stretch of land, promising a picturesque route to my destination. Little did I know, this journey would thrust me into the heart of a middle-of-nowhere horror that would redefine the limits of my sanity. As the pavement disappeared beneath me, the landscape transformed into an ocean of emptiness. Barren fields stretched for miles, interrupted only by the occasional skeletal remains of long-forgotten structures. The only companions on this desolate journey were the haunting echoes of the wind. My car rumbled along the gravel road, each mile plunging me further into isolation. No signs of life, no fellow travelers, just an eerie quiet that settled like a heavy shroud. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the desolate landscape. A flicker of unease crept over me as the road led me deeper into the wilderness. My surroundings took on an otherworldly quality, and a sense of foreboding wrapped itself around my senses. The isolation became palpable, a weight pressing on my chest with each passing mile. The first sign of civilization emerged in the form of an old, dilapidated gas station. Its weathered sign squeaked in protest as it swayed in the wind, announcing, "Last stop." The gas pumps, rusted and worn, stood like sentinels frozen in time. A reluctant decision led me to stop and check for directions, or maybe just a human presence to dispel the growing unease. The gas station's door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior that seemed to resist the intrusion of the outside world. Shelves lined with dusty snacks and faded magazines stood as relics of a forgotten era. A bell above the door jingled softly as I entered, but there was no sign of a storekeeper. My footsteps echoed through the empty aisles, creating an unsettling symphony in the silence. The air felt stagnant, and an inexplicable chill wrapped around me. I called out, but my voice seemed to dissipate into the void. A sudden draft sent a shiver down my spine, and the dim lights flickered, casting elongated shadows that danced on the walls. I turned to leave, a growing urgency urging me to escape the suffocating stillness. As I reached for the door, it slammed shut with a force that echoed through the desolate station. Panic seized me as I struggled against the resistance, my fingers clawing at the unyielding door. In that moment, the dim lights flickered and then extinguished, plunging the gas station into an impenetrable darkness. The air grew thick with a stifling presence, and an indistinct whispering enveloped me. Cold fingers brushed against my skin, and a sense of unseen eyes watching intensified the terror. When the lights flickered back to life, the gas station had transformed. Shattered snack bags littered the floor, and the shelves groaned under the weight of spectral hands that clawed through the merchandise. Faces, twisted in agony, stared at me from the shadows, their mouths moving in silent screams. A ghastly figure materialized at the end of an aisle, its eyes vacant yet accusing. A voice, neither alive nor dead, echoed through the station, recounting tales of lost souls and forgotten dreams. The figure beckoned me forward, and a spectral wind carried the whispers of tormented voices. Driven by a force beyond comprehension, I stumbled through the haunted gas station, each step an agonizing journey through the spectral realm. The walls seemed to breathe with the sorrow of the forgotten, and the air resonated with the echoes of lives lost in the middle of nowhere. When I emerged back into the desolate night, the gas station had vanished. My car stood alone on the gravel road, the gas pumps nothing more than skeletal remnants in the moonlight. The echoes of tormented souls lingered, fading into the haunting silence that stretched infinitely in every direction. With trembling hands, I restarted my car and accelerated into the unknown. The gravel road unwound before me, leading away from the site of the middle-of-nowhere horror. The isolation persisted, the desolation unbroken, but the spectral gas station became a haunting memory, a testament to the thin veil between reality and the horrors that dwell in the forgotten corners of the world. As I drove into the night, the weight of the encounter clung to me, a reminder that even in the vastness of nowhere, the echoes of the past could emerge to ensnare the living in a dance with the supernatural. The road ahead remained uncertain, and the haunting whispers echoed in my mind, a chilling refrain from the heart of nowhere that would forever haunt my nightmares.